In the heart of Miami's downtown tech corridor, the humidity stuck to your skin like the company policies stuck to your inbox, dense, suffocating, and rarely helpful. I was 32, working as lead product designer at Neptune Bank, a rising star in the fintech space. You know the type. Slick branding, kombucha taps in the break room, and CEOs who quoted Steve Jobs without understanding a word of what he actually meant. On paper, I had a dream job. In reality, I was watching my value be diluted down, ignored meeting invite at a time. I joined Neptune 4 years ago, when we were operating out of a WeWork in Wynwood. The company barely had a functional prototype back then. I helped design the first version of the app's user interface on a cracked iPad and 3 hours of sleep. Since then, the app had gone through 3 redesigns, each one led by me. My work contributed directly to a 40% increase in user retention, according to our own metrics team. I wasn't just making things look pretty. I was shaping how our customers trusted their money in a digital space. But promotion, raises, recognition, not so much. At first, I chalked it up to startup growing pains. Then to bad timing. Then to, maybe I'm not pushing hard enough. But eventually, I realized I was being held back. Not because of my skills, but because I wasn't in the inner circle. You know, the one where executives pretend to have strategy meetings that end with someone's cousin being offered a leadership role. That someone wasn't me. My boss, Aubrey Finch, was a visionary. At least that's what her LinkedIn bio said. She was sharp, composed, and had a talent for saying a lot without actually committing to anything. Over the past 2 years, I'd asked respectfully, professionally about growth opportunities. Aubrey's answers were always vague. Now's not the best time for team structure changes. We really want to see how you handle more cross-functional initiatives first. Let's revisit this after the next launch. After the next launch, that phrase had become a punchline in my head. We were always launching something, but apparently never launching me. Then came the Vega project, a new high-priority feature aimed at integrating AI-driven budgeting tools into the app. It had visibility. Investors were watching, and I was put in charge of the product experience. My wireframes went viral, well, as viral as fintech UI can get. Dribble featured one of the flows. UX Collective reached out for an interview. Internally, though, crickets. At the project debrief, Aubrey stood in front of the team and praised our collective effort. I'm proud of the engineering lift here, and the product team did a solid job with timelines. No mention of design. No mention of the user research sessions I ran on Saturdays. No mention of the A/B testing framework I built from scratch. Just silence. That was the tipping point. That night, I opened my laptop and updated my resume. Not out of rage, though, I was angry. Not out of spite, though, I felt that too. I updated it because I finally accepted what I hadn't wanted to believe for months. They weren't going to see me, so I had to go where I'd be seen. A week later, a recruiter from a company called OceanVest messaged me. They were a stealth mode fintech startup focused on democratizing investment portfolios with smarter, cleaner user flows. They had just closed a $20 million Series A. They needed someone to own the design process, end to end. And they were based in Brickleton, minutes from Neptune. The irony almost made me laugh. I took the interview. Then I took another. Then another. They moved fast. Their CEO, Amara Rowe, was nothing like Aubrey. She asked deep, strategic questions about my design philosophy. She didn't care about buzzwords, she cared about how a user felt during every second of the journey. I showed her my Vega prototypes. She leaned forward and said, "Why aren't you leading a team already?" I didn't have a good answer, just a tired smile. The offer came within days. 20% salary increase, equity, and full autonomy over their design org. I accepted it, and I made the mistake of telling Aubrey before my formal resignation. I wanted to be transparent. I still believed in leaving with dignity, so I walked into her office, resume folder tucked under my arm, and said, "I wanted to let you know that I've accepted a new role elsewhere. I'll submit my notice formally, but I figured you deserved to hear it from me first." She stared at me for a full 10 seconds, then said, "This is disappointing. Honestly, Julian, this feels like backstabbing." He blinked. "Backstabbing?" She folded her arms. "We've invested a lot into you. You've had flexibility, creative freedom, and now you're just walking out without giving us a chance to course correct?" I took a breath. "I've spent 2 years asking for growth. You said after the next launch every time. This is the correction." She stood up. "You can clear out your desk today, effective immediately." I walked out of Neptune Bank with a cardboard box and a quiet smile. No dramatic speeches, no bridge burning, Just one final thought ringing in my mind. They called it disloyalty. But all I did was value myself when they wouldn't. My first day at OceanVest felt like stepping into a parallel universe. The office wasn't fancy no living moss walls or kombucha fountains like at Neptune, but what it lacked in aesthetics, it made up for in energy. Real energy. People moved like they had somewhere to go and something worth doing. No politics, no performance theater. Just focus. I was introduced as Director of Product Design, a title I never got at Neptune, even when I was doing the job. My new team was small but sharp. Theo, a scrappy junior designer with strong instincts but no mentor. Priya, a former freelance UX researcher turned full-time product strategist. And Luis, a front-end dev with a knack for translating abstract vision into pixel-perfect code. We didn't have a formal design system yet. No UI library, no framework for feedback. It was raw. It was chaotic. It was perfect. Because for the first time in 4 years, I wasn't patching holes, I was building the ship. By week 2, I had already mapped out a design roadmap for the next 2 quarters. My goal was simple: turn OceanVest from a promising idea into a product users couldn't live without. I started by hosting live user interviews. We asked real people, first-time investors, gig workers, retirees, what made them feel confused or anxious about their money. We turned their answers into wireframes. We iterated fast, prototyped, scrapped half of it, rebuilt better. Amara, our CEO, checked in often not to micromanage, but to offer real strategic input. One afternoon, she stopped by my desk with a coffee and said, "You've already changed the rhythm of this place. Keep going." I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that until I did. By the end of the first month, our new onboarding flow was live. It was simple, empathetic, and visually clear. Drop-off rate during registration dropped by 38%. App Store reviews began to mention finally understanding how investing works. And one review stood out. "This feels like it was designed by someone who gets me." I printed it and pinned it above my desk. 3 weeks later, I received an email with the subject: Industry Panel Invitation, Miami FinTech Future Forum. They were hosting a product design showcase, and someone from the organizer team had seen our new flow. They asked if I'd present. I nearly laughed. A month ago, I was invisible. Now I was being invited to speak publicly about design strategy. I said yes. Meanwhile, something strange started happening. Several LinkedIn messages landed in my inbox. Most were from ex-colleagues at Neptune. Some were warm. "Congrats on the move. I saw OceanVest redesign. Super clean." Others were revealing. "Things are weird here without you. Aubrey's panicking. She's hiring a new design lead from LA. Just know people noticed you way more than she let on." And one, from Kelly in the QA team, just read, "She's trying to reverse engineer your work. It's not going well." I shouldn't have felt anything about that, but I did. Not joy, not spite, just key validation. They had the chance to recognize me. They didn't. Now they were trying to fill a hole they claimed didn't exist. Back at OceanVest, momentum kept building. Our investor dashboard, designed with color accessibility in mind, was gaining attention. AngelList featured it in a write-up about inclusive fintech products. 2 VCs requested demos, not just to evaluate investment, but to study our approach. Amara called a leadership meeting that Friday. She pulled up a slide showing our month-over-month growth since I joined. "We're not just improving, we're differentiating, and I want to double down." She looked directly at me. "Julian, I want you in the room for the next fundraising round. I need you there when we present this product to investors." He blinked. "Me? As in, pitching?" She smiled. "You're not just the design lead, you're the reason people stay. You know how to tell that story." My chest tightened, some mix of fear and pride. At Neptune, I'd built everything for the pitch deck, but never got to sit at the table. Now, I was being handed the microphone. That night, I sat on my balcony overlooking Biscayne Bay. The ocean glittered under streetlight haze. Below me, Miami pulsed. Loud, alive, unapologetic. I thought about the last few weeks, how I'd gone from being called disloyal to being asked to represent the company's vision, from being locked out of leadership rooms to being told, "You belong here." And I realized, this wasn't about proving anyone wrong anymore. It was about finally believing I'd been right all along. 3 weeks before OceanVest's Series B pitch, Amara booked us into a sleek meeting space on the 30th floor of a glass tower overlooking Brickell Avenue. The kind of place with white leather chairs, soundproof glass walls, and sparkling water that came with metal caps and no labels. We had 10 days to perfect the presentation. While the CTO, Ethan, refined the back-end numbers and tech roadmap, I was tasked with something far more personal, telling the story of the product. But not just features, not flows, not metrics. Amara wanted impact. Investors fund vision, Julian, she told me. I need them to see the product through the eyes of the person who built it. Not just how it works, but why it matters. So I got to work. I stayed late most nights, stitching together a narrative that wove through user pain points, design choices, and behavioral science. I pulled real quotes from our user interviews, screenshots of user testing iterations, and even an early sketch I'd made on a napkin during week 1. By Friday, I had it. Slide 1. How design became our growth engine. Slide 12. From confusion to confidence. What financial empowerment looks like. Slide 23. A video reel of real users talking about how OceanVest's dashboard helped them save more, invest smarter, and feel final like they weren't lost. When I showed the draft to Amara, she said just 3 words. This is gold. Meanwhile, rumblings from Neptune Bank started trickling in. Theo, our junior designer, forwarded me a LinkedIn job post. Neptune Bank seeks a director of product design. Must be prepared to lead without ego in high-pressure environments. That last part made me laugh. Without ego? Aubrey used to shoot down every idea, unless she thought of it first. The real kicker? The posting had a bulleted list of required experience, and it was clearly written to fit someone like me. Too little, too late. Then something unexpected happened. Luis walked over to my desk one morning with a sheepish look on his face. You're going to want to see this. He handed me his phone. A screen recording of a webinar hosted by Neptune, meant for investors and partners. They were presenting a new AI-enhanced budget assistant that looked eerily familiar. Same color scheme, same interaction model, even the same visual hierarchy we developed for OceanVest's dashboard. But the most galling part? They were calling it the Vega 2.0 experience. My stomach dropped. They didn't just recycle my ideas. They named it after the very project they sidelined me on. I showed Amara the video. She watched in silence, then rewound a section and paused on a side-by-side graph we'd used in our beta testing, phaser recreated with slightly altered labels. Is this a problem? She asked. I shrugged. Not legally. Not yet. But it's a bad faith move. They're borrowing from a vision they refuse to support. She smirked. Then let's execute them. The next week was a blur. Pitch rehearsals, visual refinements, narrative polishing. We brought in 2 of our power users to give 3-minute live testimonials during the presentation. Real people, real faces, not just avatars or bar charts. The morning of the investor day, I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window and took a deep breath. Wearing my best blazer, a simple gray tee, and sneakers, I was about to do something I'd never been allowed to at Neptune. Speak on behalf of my own work. We presented to a room of 15 people representatives from venture firms across the country. Some were focused, others skeptical. A few nodded, scribbling notes. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't focus on features. I focused on feelings. At OceanVest, we design not for what users know, but for what they fear. We don't assume financial literacy. We design for it. Because empowerment isn't just information, it's clarity. I clicked to a slide showing before and after UI comparisons from our earliest wireframes. And we test relentlessly not to validate our brilliance, but to catch our blind spots. This isn't designed for design's sake. It's designed for trust. When I finished, the room was silent for a beat longer than comfortable. Then came the applause. Then the questions. Then the nods of real interest. By the end of the day, Amara pulled me aside. We just got soft commitments for $18 million. 2 of them cited your segment specifically. My throat tightened. Seriously? She smiled. Seriously. Julian, you don't just lead product design. You lead the experience inside and out. That night, I passed by the same Neptune building I used to work in. The lights were on, the glass cold, the lobby empty. I used to think that was the only place I'd ever grow. That if I worked hard enough, one day they'd finally see me. But now, looking up at that building, I didn't want to be seen by them anymore. I wanted to be remembered by the ones I was building something with, and the ones we were building it for. The OceanVest Series B announcement dropped on a humid Thursday morning in May. $22 million raised. Led by 2 top-tier VC firms. Key focus, user, first design and product clarity. The press release featured a quote from Amara, of course, but it also quoted me, something I hadn't expected. Design isn't decoration, it's trust. And at OceanVest, we earn that trust by putting humans at the center of every decision. Julian Reyes, Director of Product Design. I read it 3 times just to let it sink in. Then I looked at my inbox. 12 unread LinkedIn messages. Most were from design students or young professionals asking for mentorship. A few were from Neptune people, but one stood out from a name I hadn't seen in months. Aubrey Finch, _ Congrats on the funding. Impressive progress in such a short time. If you're open to it, I'd love to catch up, grab coffee even. I think there's an opportunity we should talk about. Let me know. _ Opportunity? I stared at the message like it was written in another language. The same person who'd fired me for disloyalty now wanted to reconnect. Coffee? Really? I didn't respond. Instead, I redirected my focus to the thing that actually mattered, building. Our team doubled in size that month. We onboarded a second product designer, 2 new engineers, and a content strategist. I ran internal onboarding sessions myself to ensure the design philosophy scaled with us. At Neptune, design had been reactive. Here, we were intentional. We added a why we built it section to every major feature update, not just for users but for the team. Every developer, marketer, and product manager could trace their impact from idea to interface. The culture was catching on. Then came the ripple effects. OceanVest was now on everyone's radar, including Neptune's clients. We didn't know it yet, but one of their mid-sized enterprise accounts, Portlight Investments, had quietly been using OceanVest's consumer app to test usability for their own tools. They reached out to us directly. We're exploring a potential partnership or maybe even platform migration. Could we get a demo of your enterprise suite? We didn't have an enterprise suite yet, but Amara was no fool. Julian, she said, I want you to lead this. Treat it like a pitch. They're not just evaluating product, they're evaluating who they trust to guide it. The irony wasn't lost on me. Less than a year ago, I was denied a seat at Neptune's client strategy sessions. Now I was building a custom roadmap for their former clients. We worked fast. Over 2 weeks, I led a sprint that translated our consumer product's strongest elements into scalable enterprise solutions. Modular dashboards, permission layers, collaborative goal-setting tools for team-based investing. Luis prototyped. Priya gathered enterprise insights. And I designed. I hadn't felt this alive in years. The day of the pitch, we walked into Portlight's Midtown headquarters with a prototype that didn't just work, it resonated. One of their execs, a sharp woman named Serena, said mid-demo, "It's like you built this to fix all the things we've been silently frustrated with." I smiled. We probably have the same list. She looked at me. You came from Neptune, didn't you? I hesitated, then nodded. I did, until they decided I didn't fit their idea of leadership. Serena nodded slowly. Well, you fit ours. By the end of the week, Portlight committed to a $1.6 million pilot. OceanVest wasn't just a scrappy upstart anymore. We were now pulling business from the very company that refused to invest in me. The next message from Aubrey came via email. I understand if the answer is no, but we've had some recent shakeups, and I'd like to explore consulting options if you're open to collaborating. We're reevaluating some design infrastructure. Translation. Things were falling apart. She wanted help rebuilding what she once refused to protect. This time, I did respond. Hey Aubrey, thanks for reaching out. Unfortunately, I'm fully committed to our vision at OceanVest and don't have availability to consult. I hope you're able to find the right support for your team. Julian. _ No anger, no pettiness, just the clean boundary of someone who finally knew their worth. 2 weeks later, I received a text from Kelly Still at Neptune. Aubrey's stepping down. They're restructuring the entire product org. 3 team leads quit last week. Not gonna lie, watching OceanVest eat their lunch is the only thing keeping me sane right now. I read it, exhaled, and set the phone down. It wasn't satisfying, not in the way revenge stories are supposed to be. But it was clear. What Neptune refused to build through trust and collaboration, they tried to duplicate through shortcuts and panic. And now they were paying the price. At OceanVest, we hosted a rooftop celebration. Nothing extravagant, just tacos, music, and stories. Someone brought up our first app version, and Theo pulled out the napkin sketch I had taped to my monitor. He raised it like a flag. It all started with this: a napkin, a Sharpie, and someone who believed design could lead the way. We laughed, but I didn't. I just smiled, because I wasn't chasing credibility anymore. I'd built it. It happened during an otherwise ordinary Wednesday strategy meeting. Amara had just wrapped up updates on hiring when she said, almost casually, "We've been approached." Everyone in the room turned to look at her. Approached? I asked. By who? She hesitated for a beat, then said, Neptune Bank. The silence was deafening. I felt my pulse quicken, heat rising to my neck. It wasn't just shock. It was something heavier in, odd combination of betrayal, irony, and absurdity. They want to acquire us? I asked, slower this time. She nodded. An exploratory conversation. They're positioning it as a strategic merger leverage our product momentum to complement their legacy infrastructure. Translation. They saw the writing on the wall and wanted to buy the painter. After the meeting, I cornered Amara in her office. Tell me straight, are we entertaining this? She leaned back, laced her fingers. I'm not here to sell out, Julian, but as CEO, I have to assess all serious offers. It's my job to make sure we stay alive and thriving. That includes understanding our leverage. I got it, I really did. But hearing Neptune's name again framed as a buyer was a slap I didn't know I'd still flinch from. They didn't value any of this when it was being built under their roof, I said. Now that it's working, they want to slap their logo on it? Amara didn't blink. Exactly. And that's why we'll be strategic, not sentimental. Over the next week, we reviewed the offer. It was aggressive. A full buyout, majority cash with some equity rollover. Retention bonuses for key leaders, including me. They want to keep our core team intact, Amara told me. They're especially insistent on you. I nearly laughed. I was literally fired for interviewing elsewhere. She nodded. And now you're their leverage. Internally, the team was on edge. Rumors swirled. Everyone knew that an acquisition, even a friendly one, meant change. Some feared losing creative control. Others feared being absorbed into the very culture we had left behind. I feared both. Theo pulled me aside one night after hours. You think they'll actually go through with it? I don't know, I said. But I know what we built here is worth more than their desperation. He looked at me. Then say that in the room. 2 days later, Amara invited me to the meeting. Just me, her, and 2 Neptune executive A's, a stiff legal guy, and someone I hadn't seen in nearly a year. Aubrey Finch. She walked in wearing the same blazer she used to wear to our Monday check-ins. Her hair shorter, her eyes more calculating than ever. Julian, she said, as if bumping into an old friend. Congratulations, you've really made something special. I nodded, cool and brief. Thanks. I remember asking for the chance to do that once. She smiled, tight-lipped. Sometimes vision just needs the right conditions. Or the right leadership, I added. We sat down. They outlined their proposal again. Financials, timelines, integration plans. Then came the pitch. We want to take what OceanVest is doing and scale it with Neptune's reach. Together, we can dominate the digital investing space in under 18 months. I couldn't hold it in. With respect, you had all the pieces 2 years ago. You chose not to use them. We weren't ready then, Aubrey admitted. But we are now. And this time, you'd have a leadership seat at the table from day one. I looked at Amara. She gave nothing away. Then I said, I already have a seat at the table, and this one's built on trust, not repair. The meeting ended without commitment. Later that night, Amara called me from her apartment rooftop. We're declining the offer, she said. The board's on board. I exhaled, a long, deep breath I didn't know I was holding. Why tell me first? She paused. Because this isn't just my company anymore. It's ours. The next morning, we sent our response. OceanVest was not for sale. Not now. Not to them. And not at the cost of the culture that made us valuable in the first place. That decision sent a ripple through the Miami tech scene. Some saw us as bold, others as reckless. But clients noticed. So did investors. Within a month, we landed 2 more enterprise clients. And Neptune? They pulled their acquisition team back to HQ. A week after that, Kelly sent me one last text. They're calling it Phase 2 stabilization. No one knows what that means. But 3 more leads resigned this week. We didn't gloat. We didn't mock. We just kept building. Because OceanVest wasn't created to be sold off in pieces. It was built to last. And finally, I believed I was too. 6 months after we turned down Neptune's offer, I was back where it all started on the 5th floor balcony of OceanVest's original office in Brickell. The late summer heat pressed down, but the evening breeze off the bay made it bearable. A lot had changed since then. We now occupied the top 3 floors of the same building. Our logo sleek, confident, minimal glowed blue across the tower's exterior at night. From this balcony, I could see Neptune's headquarters across the water. It looked smaller now. Maybe it always had been. OceanVest had grown from a 15-person startup into a 70-person powerhouse. We'd launched our enterprise suite, added multilingual support, and just signed our first international client in Toronto. Even more incredible, we were profitable. In a market where most fintechs were bleeding VC money just to survive, we were building responsibly, intentionally, together. That word together meant something here. I stood in front of the all-hands meeting on a Thursday afternoon, looking out at a sea of new faces. Designers, engineers, researchers, ops. Some of you know how this started, I began. A broken system, a lack of voice, the feeling that no matter how much you contributed, it would never be enough for someone else to see you. I paused. We didn't fix that by yelling louder. We fixed it by building something better. Applause erupted. Not the performative kind, the genuine kind. After the meeting, Theo found me. He was now a senior product designer, mentoring others the way I had once mentored him. You think we'll outgrow this? He asked, motioning to the culture, the trust. Only if we forget why we started, I said. He nodded, thoughtful. Then let's make sure we don't. The next day, we launched our internal mentorship program. 2 weeks later, we introduced Open Product Fridays, where Enya Ninot just managers could pitch a product idea. Within a month, 3 of those pitches were in development. We weren't just building fintech tools. We were building a company that listened. Late one evening, I got a message request on LinkedIn from a name I didn't recognize. Jade V, Associate UX Designer at Neptune Bank. The message read, "Hey Julian, I'm a junior designer at Neptune. I've followed your journey since OceanVest launched. Just wanted to say your story gave me the courage to ask for a transfer off a toxic team. I didn't get it, but I'm applying elsewhere now. Thanks for reminding me I'm not crazy for wanting more." I read it twice, not because it surprised me, but because I remembered being in that same seat staring at screens, waiting for someone to validate my effort. Now I was that someone. A week later, Amara and I sat down to review strategy. She pulled up a graph-hour growth trajectory and next to it, a quote she'd scribbled on a sticky note. Culture is not a strategy, but it enables every strategy. You said this 6 months ago, she reminded me. Was I that wise? She grinned. Apparently. I leaned back in my chair. We never built this to beat anyone. We built it because we knew we could do it better. And we did, she said. As I walked out of her office, I passed by a wall filled with printed messages from users. Real people, real impact. One caught my eye. I didn't think finance apps could be this human. Thank you for making it simple and kind. That one stayed with me, because that's what all this had been about. Not revenge, not ego, not even proving them wrong. It was about making something better for everyone who'd ever been told to wait, stay quiet, or just be grateful. We weren't just a product. We were a reminder. That integrity can win. That building with Pio Planot over them creates real value. And that sometimes, the best way to get even is to elevate.